Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stu Lees and here are today's top stories. After almost a week of falling virus cases, the Prime Minister urges people not to reach premature conclusions.
People have got to remain very cautious, and that remains the approach of the government.
The government announces that key workers can take daily tests instead of isolating to avoid disruption to crucial services. And we take a look at the legacy of the London 2012 Olympic Games and what it left for the city. The Prime Minister warns people not to run away with premature conclusions after almost a week of improving virus figures. Cases fell for the 7th day in a row. NTD's Eddie Aiken brings us the details.
Britain reported its lowest daily total of new CCP virus cases since June the 29th on Tuesday. This adds to signs that a recent surge in infections driven by the Indian variant may have passed its peak. The number of new cases fell for the 7th day running, from almost 25,000 on Monday to less than 24,000 on Tuesday. Almost 230,000 new cases in the past week is 30% lower than the week before. The Prime Minister urged caution.
I've noticed that obviously that we're 6 days into some better figures, but it is very, very important that we don't allow ourselves to run away with premature conclusions about this.
England has been closely watched by health experts since most legal restrictions were lifted on July the 19th. The government judged that the risk of a big wave of deaths was low due to a high vaccination rate, even if it did not fully stop infections. However, businesses have reported widespread absences of staff who were required to isolate after contact with someone who tested positive.
I know that people have been frustrated about the pinging and the self-isolation. I totally understand that, particularly now as we're starting to see some better figures. But I think everybody understands that this is still a very dangerous disease. We do need to use the tools that we have.
Britain has recorded over 129,000 deaths during the pandemic, the second highest official total in Europe after Russia. There have been 480 deaths in the past 7 days, 40% more than the week before. Nearly 47 million people in the UK have received one vaccine dose, and 37 million, or just over 70% of adults, are fully vaccinated. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
NTD uses the term CCP virus to refer to COVID-19 in reference to how the Chinese Communist Party mishandled the initial outbreak of the virus that led to the pandemic. A look at leaked figures now that show more than half of hospitalizations for the virus only tested positive after being admitted to hospital. The figures seen by the Telegraph newspaper suggest many people classed as COVID patients were admitted to hospital with another illness. Here's NTD's Jane Worrell with more.
Leaked data from all NHS trusts in England may indicate that numbers for COVID-19 hospitalisations are overstated. The data leaked to the Telegraph newspaper means many people counted as COVID patients may have been admitted to hospital with other ailments. It said as of last Thursday, 44% of patients classed as being hospitalised with the virus had tested positive by the time they were admitted. 43% tested positive within 2 days of admission, or 13% were diagnosed in the days and weeks that followed, which could include those likely to have caught the virus in hospital. One NHS data expert told the newspaper that the published statistics distorted the true picture. There are calls from experts for more data transparency from the UK government. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
Ink collectors, prison staff and those working in defence will no longer have to isolate if they come into contact with someone who has the CCP virus. The government now allows these key workers to take daily tests instead in order to avoid disruption to crucial services. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us the details.
The government announced late Monday that it will expand workplace daily contact testing to 2,000 sites across the country. Prisons, waste collection and defence will be prioritised. Under the scheme, key workers who have been pinged by the NHS COVID app no longer have to self-isolate. They can now continue working provided they test negative each day. Though most lockdown restrictions have been lifted, the quarantine rules won't be relaxed until the 16th of August. Businesses and public services have been complaining about what they call pingdemic. Many of their workers have been pinged by the NHS app and had to isolate, causing serious staff shortages. During the week to the 14th of July, the app sent out more than 600,000 alerts in England and Wales. The government has allowed transport workers, border force, frontline police and fire staff and those working in the food industry to avoid isolation. But ministers have so far resisted pressure from business leaders and some Conservatives to bring forward the wider relaxation of isolation rules for fully vaccinated people in England. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
Over to the Olympics now, as the Japanese capital braced itself for a storm set to disrupt competition schedules. The Japanese Prime Minister told people to stay home. Tokyo reported its highest number of CCP virus infections today since the pandemic began. NTD's David English brings us more on that.
The Japanese capital reported 2,848 new cases of the CCP virus on Tuesday. It exceeds the previous highest total of 2,520 cases from early January, and is the highest number recorded in Tokyo since the beginning of the pandemic. Japan's Prime Minister, Yoshihide Suga, urged residents not to travel in the city and to watch the games from home.
Under this circumstance, we again would like all of our Japanese citizens to avoid non-essential and non-urgent outings and watch the Olympics and Paralympics on TV.
He was asked by a journalist whether the games would be cancelled.
The movement of people is decreasing, so there's no option on that.
The same day, Olympic officials reported 7 new games-related virus cases, including 2 athletes. Olympic organisers have set up a bubble system at the Tokyo Games Village, where around 11,000 are staying, which includes testing at the bubble's border. It was already delayed by a year due to the pandemic and took the unprecedented step to go ahead this year without spectators. Tokyo is under its 4th state of emergency, which is to continue until just before the Paralympics start in late August. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe praised the commitment of athletes given the circumstances.
I think there are some events that will be affected more without the crowds than others, and you're right. I mean, something like the pole vaulters really feed off the atmosphere in a stadium. But I think, look, most of them recognise, and I think probably were prepared at some stage for this to be the sacrifice to be here.
Leaving the silence of the stadium behind, those watching at home can do plenty of cheering from afar. And in Maidenhead, that's what happened when British Olympic swimmer Tom Dean won gold in the 200 freestyle. Despite the 8-hour time difference, Dean's family were wide awake to see the swimmer touch out 0.04 ahead of teammate Duncan Scott in GB's first men's 1-2 in the pool since 1908. It's an incredible story for Dean, who contracted COVID-19 twice in the build-up to the Games. David English, NTD News.
As well as swimmers Tom Dean and Duncan Scott's 1-2 in the pool, Team GP picked up a 2nd silver and 3 bronze on day 4. That takes the medal tally to 13, making them 5th in the medal table. A look back now to the Olympics in 2012, when London hosted its own Games. What impact has the Games left on the capital? NTD's Eddie Aiken has the story.
Back in 2012, up to 180,000 spectators entered the new Olympic Park every day to enjoy the London Games. 9 years later, the 560-acre Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park is hoping to build a lasting legacy. 5 Olympic venues remain there, including the Velodrome Arena. Social enterprise Bikeworks is now based at the Velodrome. It offers all-ability cycling sessions to Londoners.
We are that conduit. We are the organisation, the grassroots community organisation that goes out and outreaches to those and brings them here and shows them that actually they can use this venue, they can use this park, and we have the bikes to offer that activity.
Not far away, locals are taking a swim at London Aquatics Centre. The centre is open for schools, clubs and public swims.
I think it's still in transition given all the building work around. There are times when I come and the pool's relatively empty.
Director of Park Operations Peter Tudor says the legacy of the 2012 Olympics is people using this park for their day-to-day health and fitness.
Well, 9 years on, a lot has been achieved, but there's so much more still to do. We have lots more houses to deliver. New people are living in the park now. People are going to school in the park. We've got 3 schools. We have universities coming to the park and some already here. So there's plenty still to be developed. Give us another 10, maybe even 15 years. Come back and see how we're doing then.
Cranes crowd the skyline amid construction sites for new homes and a cultural centre that is expected to open in 2023.
It has a bit of community about it, and it's a very nice area to spend time and walk around. I feel like it's still getting its soul a little bit. Lots of building work, but it feels like there's definitely something coming for this area.
Back in 2007, this area was a rundown part of East London and the site of a dilapidated greyhound track. But now the park is hoping to attract 125 million visitors by 2031. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Seeing the mostly empty venues in Tokyo, France is looking for ways to renew the spirit of the Olympics when it hosts the Games in 3 years' time. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us this report.
It's only 3 years until Paris hosts the Olympic Games. Reflecting on almost empty venues where only athletes provide the sporting soul, French Sports Minister Jean-Michel Blanquer sees the need to renew the spirit of the Games.
Sport is key for people, and it's even more true now with this crisis and with the need to move, the need to have good health, the need to be together.
Domestic opposition to hosting the Olympics is nothing new, but it's been magnified in Tokyo with locals shut out of the costly venues their taxes help to fund. Blanquer is braced for growing dissent in France, but he hopes to quell it by promoting the worth of the extravaganza.
Sport shouldn't be a topic of division. It's true that sometimes Olympic Games are a topic of debate, which is normal in democracies. So it's our aim to give proofs of the goodness of the Olympic Games for the country.
Blanquer aims to secure more funding from President Macron, hoping to use that money to help France increase its medal count. France finished 7th in the medal standings of the 2012 and 2016 Olympics, while the UK pocketed the second most gold medals in Rio 2016.
We have watched the British example, and of course, for example, for these games we have put more money for the medals, and we have now a special responsible for the coordination of the clubs and federations to have new champions.
France's 2021 budget earmarks nearly £80 million for high-performance Olympic and Paralympic sports. France aims to be among the top 5 nations in medal list. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
The Financial Times reports that the government is exploring ways to decouple from China's state-owned nuclear power company. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the story.
Britain is looking to decouple from China's CGN nuclear power company. The Financial Times reports that the government plans to block CGN from the new Sizewell plant in the east of England, worth more than $27 billion. One nuclear expert says CGN has become good and quick at making nuclear plants, but there is another reason for working with the China state-backed provider.
Part of the reason why CGN were brought in was that they were going to bring a significant amount of money.
In 2019, the Trump administration warned the UK about letting China get involved in its critical infrastructure. In 2017, an engineer in the US was sentenced to 2 years in prison for working with CGN to leak nuclear power technology to China.
Well, the US has been consistently right on CGN, and the reason for that is it itself has seen the cost. American companies were the victims of a plot in which CGN was a defendant, in which a Chinese engineer pled guilty to stealing nuclear secrets and passing them back to CGN. It had seen the damage that this company can do firsthand.
Armstrong says the Trump administration, and in particular the work of diplomat Christopher Ashley Ford at the State Department, helped warn about the dangers of CGN. For Britain's Hinkley Point nuclear power station, CGN's investment is significant.
They're investing perhaps £6 or £7 billion, perhaps $10 billion. That's quite a lot of money. And if we don't have CGN as the investor, the other major investor in the plant, the question is who will be?
He said that if state-backed French firm EDF doesn't provide its share of investment to the UK, then these nuclear projects won't work. He says that EDF is currently working closely with the UK government, and if funding is secured, the CGN portion of investment will be of lesser concern. The new Sizewell plant deal is expected to exclude CGN and is similar to the agreement with Hinkley Point, which CGN already works on. Armstrong's asking why they aren't retrospectively looking to do something about the Hinkley situation. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
A renowned Scottish climber has died while attempting to scale K2 in northern Pakistan, the world's second highest mountain. Rick Allen was trying to reach the summit along a new route when he was swept away by an avalanche. NTD's Eddie Aiken has more.
Aberdeen-born Rick Allen died attempting to climb the world's second highest mountain. He was climbing to raise money for the Partners Relief and Development charity. The charity announced on Twitter, with great sadness, that Mr. Allen died attempting a new route on K2. His two climbing partners survived the avalanche and were rescued. Stephen Keck from Austria gave his account of what happened.
We saw some small, it's not like avalanche, it's just some spin drift, some very wet snow is sliding down. But we didn't thought that this is very dangerous for us. And we continued to climb, and at 11 we had a belay, a safe place on the rock.
But it turned out they underestimated the danger they were in. A major avalanche swept them nearly 2,000 feet down, with fatal consequences.
So Rick was with his rope on my body. We are connected. He was just half a meter next to me. And when I opened my eyes after this avalanche and I checked around me, he was already dead. He got hit by a rock in the face.
Mr. Allen was an experienced climber and a passionate campaigner for children's welfare. In a statement, the Partners Relief and Development charity said, Rick died doing what he loved the most and lived his life with the courage of his convictions. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Still to come, at least one person is dead and 30 injured after an explosion rocked an industrial park in western Germany. That and more after the break. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.